A przed nami już za chwileczkę Gerard Crichlow, strategic consultant at WorkingVersion, ale to już za moment. Hi, Gerard. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah.
How are you?
Nice to meet you via internet. How are you today? Are you safe
Yes.
in this strange COVID times?
I am. I'm here in sunny London, which is rare, but yeah, things have been really
Nice to
good
hear
here.
that.
How are you guys doing?
Great, thanks a lot. Gerard, tell us how social media networks are changing the nature of attention, content, and business. The virtual stage is yours.
Amazing. I'm just waiting for the deck to come up.
Take your time.
Yeah.
I hope everything is fine.
So make sure that works. The clicker.
Well, I guess, yes. Everything is okay. Go on.
Yes, here we go. Okay, I think the clicker is working now. It's good to be here. It's good to come from London and to talk to your international audience. So today I'm going to talk about sort of distraction and attention in 21st century. And I think if we think about sort of attention today, it's actually changed so much from when it first began, because modern day advertising, in a sense, has been based on a 20th century model, which is all about sort of mass reach. And everything we know about it was about scale. And we're trying to get products into the hands of as many people as possible. And so when you start to think about attention, it's really about how can we get in front of as many people. This is one of the first ads ever created in the United States. It's from Bulova, and it was created in 1941. Let's see if we can play it. So it should be playing. Hopefully you can hear the sound. But it was short and simple, 30 seconds. And it costs a whopping $5 to create, sort of $4 in air charges and $5 in station charges. And it's not that dissimilar to what you've seen in like 30-second ads today. If you fast forward 63 years, you can see the peak of what we've called sort of content, where Chanel created the most expensive ad in the world, which at the time cost $33 million. And it featured the famous director, Baz Luhrmann, and it featured sort of the award-winning actress in it. That fee of $33 million was also equal to the same amount that the Oscar-nominated film Trainspotting cost to make an entire film. And this was only sort of a 3-minute video. Let's quickly play that video. This is what you call branded content, in a sense. I'm not even sure if some of you guys have ever seen this ad, but actually, was it worth it? So kind of to recap, in a sense, the nature of advertising as we know it today was really all in concentrated attention, where you had a limited amount of channels to get in front of people. And so if you got your ad in front of them, it was probably a good chance that you were going to reach them. And so it was much easier to reach people back then. Today, the world has changed. And so what happened between 1941 and 2003? Well, kind of the internet happened. And as a result of that, we have communities and conversations are much more distributed and happening in many different places. What happens are brands are wanting to insert themselves in these conversations with the same old disruptive mindset when there's a new economy emerging. And it actually requires a different type of behavior. What happens is that this has given rise to a new type of advertising, in a sense. And this is where Nike's Londoner campaign, which happened in 2018, really began to shine as a new way to get attention in front of the different audiences. I kind of particularly know this because it took Cannes by storm in 2018, and it won the first social media category, which I also sat on that jury and have intimate knowledge of how that works. Really quickly, when you play the case study, you begin to see that they really understood niche communities, different ideas, and they had a different sort of media plan for mixed modeling and how to reach people, which was almost the first in the industry at the time. And it's becoming much more normal. So what we're seeing is that as a result of social media, of the internet, new digital audiences have emerged, and brands are looking to culture in order to stay relevant. If they can't disrupt them with advertising, if they're turning themselves off, they're trying to relate to them by staying culturally relevant to them. I think what we're actually seeing for the first time is that culture is actually based on the internet. And for the first time, culture is defined by the internet, not the other way around, which is a big shift in what's happening in the world. And so quickly to recap sort of the journey we've been on in terms of attention, before attention was much more concentrated sort of in, out of home, TV, radio, print. And now it's much more networked and distributed, which means that there's so many more options for us to reach people and get their attention. Let's see here. So if we're going to begin to think about what is the future of attention, it's really helpful to understand the features of this digital internet and the behaviors that are out there, which is based on social media and media networks. So if you think about it, just fast forward to sort of 2020, you start to think about the world's most downloaded apps. Much of those are sort of what you know is your regular social media apps, the Facebooks, the Zooms, and which have video at the heart of them. And that's really helpful. But I think if you look at it by sort of gross worldwide apps, you start to see a sort of a different landscape emerging. The ones that are making money are the ones where they have video as a platform for entertainment. So that's where you start getting Netflix, YouTube, so the doyens that are in there, and that's actually much more entertainment based, not just social. And I think when you start to look at it, Josh Ellman, who is a product engineer and a developer, and he's also sort of become an investor in some of the world's most successful tech companies in the world. He posted this thread on Twitter. It's talking about the difference between social media and media networks in themselves. And I think there's an important distinction to look at. If you look at social media, in a sense, it was all designed in order to connect people to things, to their friends, right? So the people you followed, and it was designed with their likes, the wall, the status updates, all to sort of share with you everything that people were interested in. He summarizes it as everything is about connecting directly with the core of who you know. It's all about your contacts. But when you start to look at it, brands never actually had a role in this place. And so you start to see things crop up within the social media environment that really has no place. It kind of feels out of place within this world, right? And so you kind of had brands like you see Kenneth Cole behaving in here in this sales environment. It's kind of like turning up to the party empty-handed, and they kind of show their strategy on their sleeves, right? And these are sort of some funny ones. The news networks like Oreo kind of ruined my life during the days of community management when everyone wanted to set up a newsroom to be relevant to what's going on. And then when you start to see what's happening in customer service with the American Red Cross, they've actually had a row community manager who basically was talking about things in different ways. The whole point is that the brands kind of were trying to feel their way through this new environment and what that actually meant for them. But I think it gets much more interesting for brands when it relates to customer service. And here's like a recent sort of tweet that was pulled where there was a guy, Jack Appleby, who's sort of in the agency world, talked about renting a car, and Hertz responded to him, helping him out, and showed love. And so you only want to hear from a brand when they can actually help you do things, in a sense. And that's made much more sense in the context of social media. If you think about media networks, on the other hand, you do have that social graph that's layered on top of it. But also, you do have cues, and it's much more interesting because they are much more interested in what you're interested in. So whether that's an article or music or movies, it can be anything. And then they start to tailor their algorithm directly towards what you are, and it learns and it gets smarter. You're seeing that much more within the apps. And so what Josh says is that media networks are all about tailoring what the content is to what you enjoy watching. It's to your interest. And so if you look at sort of some of the bigger ones, Netflix shows you movies that you might be interested in. Spotify surfaces music and artists that you might care about, podcasts that you might be interested in. TikTok kind of shows you the videos, but also topics that you might be interested in as well. And the more you interact with it, the smarter it gets, which is, I think, brings us to where we are now. We're actually beginning to leave the era of social media, and we're entering a new era. And I think that era is really based less on disrupting people's attention with advertising, and it's much more based on appealing to their interest by providing them with new value-added services. In this era, it's based on what I'm calling interactive collaboration, which is based on sort of the trifecta or the nexus between content, commerce, and communities. And at the very center of this trifecta, I'd say, is where brands can play, because there's value-added services. And so the role of brands in the future is less to disrupt people, but to add more value services to their lives. And this is a fundamental shift of where we're going. And if brands are going to be able to provide different value and different services to people's lives, they're really going to have to begin to wake up and then figure out what they're aware of in culture at the moment, because digital culture, as we mentioned earlier, is culture, and it's shaping everything that's happening in the world. Yeah. And so if you begin to think about it, the signals of what's happening and where the industry is going is happening all around us. It's happening in venture capital, it's happening in gaming, it's happening in different areas where we can understand human needs, and then where business can then shift in order to support those needs. So you can start thinking about the need for people to connect with each other and the rise of virtual reality, or what's happening in terms of technology and the evolution of that, and where gaming plays a role in that realm. Or what about people's need to kind of connect but make money with influencers, and how is that affecting the future of entertainment? If you start to look at these, I think there are sort of three trends that are really important to be aware of. The first, I believe, is about short-form video. The second is about the evolution of the business model. And the third is the convergence of the physical and the digital worlds. If we start with short-form video, I think the one thing to really to know about it is that video apps are becoming not just a platform for entertainment, but they're becoming retail apps. And the emergence of super apps are happening. And so video is becoming an e-commerce app, but also e-commerce apps are also becoming video apps in turn. if you look at it, I think the world of what's happening in the East is really showing us the way of the future. So, for instance, you think about Taibo, which is China's largest e-commerce platform. About 42% of their product pages are already include short-form video and live streaming already. And they've already made about $15 billion in sales from those live streams, which is up nearly about 400% from the year before. Kwai is an interesting video app that's also based on short form, and Douyin, or better known as TikTok, in different parts of the world, is already beginning to become a super app where you can not only just watch videos, but you can buy things as well. So if we look into short form videos, I want to show you a couple examples of what this could look like. So I think right now, the rise of video apps means that people can cut out the middlemen. In terms of, there's an example within the short form videos of this woman named Miss Feng, who basically, she's not a big influencer. She is from Sichuan, and she has about 218,000 followers. And she has an orchard where she grows sugar canes and pomegranates, but she's best known for what's known as her sugar hearts. And so they're apples that have this sort of heart-like appearance in it. They're not necessarily normal apples. And so what she's doing is showcasing the deliciousness of her sugar heart apples. Imagine waking up, looking through your feed, seeing these apples. She's cutting them, she's opening them, she's showing what that looks like, and saying, oh man, I really want that apple. I want to buy that right now at this moment. She's showcasing that you can get that. And then if you look within this feed on this button here, you can click right into it. And then within a few clicks, you'll be able to buy that apple yourself. And that's different. That's different than where we've been in using this content as a driver for commerce. And so the story is really a unique selling point for people on what brands can be harnessing when they talk to their audiences. Second, if you start to think about what's going on in the world, the internet was never really based on discovery. It was all based on search. And so when you start to look at it, Amazon in particular, 70% of shoppers never click past that first page of search results. And so it was all about search, never discovery. But what you can see is you can begin to sell different types of products in different ways. And this is really by using, this is on Douyin here, and you can use entertainment as a way to sell things. This is for an app that is selling sort of screen guards. And it kind of dramatizes the product to show what it actually can do. And there are these types of pieces of content that tend to go viral, and then it allows you to say, hey, wow, that is usually quite boring, but by dramatizing and making it entertaining, and then making it easily able to obtain, it becomes such a different value proposition from where we've been before. And so it's built for the world's built for discovery, not for search. And so the last one I'd say is when you think of the shopping experience, it tends to be kind of a boring experience. And the experience online never mirrors the experience in the real world. But in the future, shopping will be much more interactive, and you can begin to not use static images like you'd find on your standard e-commerce sites, but they'll be much more interactive. And you can use influencers in order to sell more things. This is sort of an example of how you can begin to see video apps showing an alternative way to monetize your content, but sell your products and reach your viewers in different ways. And so fashion will become much more entertainment than it's ever been before. And it's easier to begin to monetize your influencer audiences as another channel. So shopping will be entertainment. When you think of commerce, I think the internet is also changing because there's so much more opportunities to buy things. And so the business model is beginning to evolve in itself. gaming engines in particular, I believe, are building the infrastructure of the entertainment future. And I'm really high on gaming because I feel like gaming is the F1 of entertainment and experiences. The things that happen in the gaming world will translate themselves much more into the future of how we see ourselves as entertainment in general. If you begin to take the word gaming out of it, but think of it more as interactive experiences, you could see what this looks like. And I think we've all seen the stats of sort of the gaming industry reaching $129 billion by 2021. Esports is high. You can see that sort of The Weeknd has performed virtually in TikTok, and The Mandalorian and Epic Games teamed up to create sort of the worlds in the movie. But what this actually means, I think, is quite summed up very well by the CEO of Unity Technologies, which basically says that real time in gaming has to be fast. And so what they're looking at is rendering pixels, the screen, the animation, the sound, the light, they all have to be instantaneous. And what they're doing is building the sort of the technology infrastructure for those things to happen at speed. And that's where the real-timeness comes into, and where entertainment becomes much more important because the infrastructure is being built as we see right now. So if you think of the different ways you can monetize the gaming world, you can see that microtransactions are key. Everyone has heard of Fortnite, and we know about skins that they have. And I'd say what's interesting is that Fortnite in 2018 made $22.4 billion, which much of that came from players buying different types of skins. And Epic Games has been really savvy about releasing new characters each year, new skins, and then rotating those popular skins so that people can shop and buy those things and have an opportunity to buy things that they might have missed. But what you're also seeing is there's this change happening in how people express themselves in the digital world, and it's giving rise to this sort of emergence of what's called direct to avatar commerce, which people are buying much more. And you can start to see that in other areas of our lives as well. So Snapchat and Bitmojis, they're basically partnered with Ralph Lauren to show different outfits. So imagine where you don't necessarily buy clothes for yourself, you're buying clothes for your digital avatar. And what Polo is doing and Ralph Lauren is showing that all the clothes that they have in the real world is actually also available for sale in your Bitmoji world. And people actually are buying way more skins and Bitmojis for themselves than they're actually buying in the real world. This is sort of a signal that we can take advantage of in the future, but also makes it much more interesting in the future. What's also happening is this idea of virtual transactions. And I'm not sure if you guys are all familiar with this, but there's a site called Decentraland. And it's basically where people can buy property online. And so instead of buying property in the real world where your space is at a premium, you can buy property online. This is a DC-sized city called Genesis City. Property was selling for as much as $200,000 for a piece of property, which is where you're going to start to see virtual tycoons and developers begin to buy up. So if you have money now, you can begin to start buying virtual property. This is sort of an image of the zoning proposal by a community member named Priscilla Cohen. And this is what it looks like. It's based on what DC looks like, but it's becoming a major hub for virtual commerce, which I find quite interesting. The other sort of commerce opportunity that's happening is subscriptions. And everyone knows about Minecraft. But why is Minecraft interesting? Well, I'd say if you start to think about it, Minecraft's more than a game. It actually is about facilitating demand, and it allows its users to have their own servers. By having their own servers, you can begin to determine your own gameplay. And so Minecraft, at some level, has created this open-ended business model that's generated more than $1 billion in revenue since they've created that marketplace in 2017. And by creating sort of this subscription model where you can build and create things on your own, it's created a whole new world of hand-picked community developers where skins are also important, but you can have your own sort of epic adventures within this own mini world. And so mini economies have emerged around Minecraft and these private servers. Oops. And so what you also see is that the subscription model is actually quite interesting. I don't know if you've seen, but recently Microsoft came out with their new Xbox game console. And when you see the consoles, when they're competing against Sony for the PS2 or the PS4, most of those prices were about £400. But what Microsoft's done is undercut the competition and sold it for the traditional $299, which means that they can cut the model and then sell it for a cheaper rate, but sell the games at a subscription. So now they are also getting into the subscription game. Similarly, Amazon is getting into the subscription game as well when they announced Luna, which is quite a different business model for them because the model it's based on sort of a channel subscription rather than buying games and getting them from publishers for a flat fee each month. And so subscriptions are the future in terms of the business models as well. And then last but not least, we're starting to see this idea of the physical and the digital world converging. And so when you start to look at what Facebook is doing, they've got the Oculus Rift, but they've also created Facebook Horizon, where you basically can go into the world and you can speak to sort of a customer representative, and they can walk you through different rooms. And there are different doors into each of these rooms where there opens up new worlds. And what you're starting to see is that people are interacting, maybe not in the real world as much, partly because of COVID, but if they have the gear, they can have different types of meetings. They can interact with people in different ways. We saw that sort of different business investors were playing Grand Theft Auto and going around the cities and destroying cars instead of having a coffee meeting or go for a drink. They were doing business together in the gaming environment, which has been a different shift that we've been in before. And this isn't just restricted to the gaming world, but I think you started to see brands like Adidas release a new SKUs of shoes. So, for instance, Damian Lillard, who's probably one of my favorite basketball players, who plays for the Blazers in Portland. He debuted his new sneaker line in 2K2, and so his avatar in the game had his new shoes. And in order to get his new shoes, you had to play the game, and then so you can find it on the avatar, but also you can buy that shoe for yourself in the real world. Similarly enough, Burning Man has been creating different worlds and recreating Burning Man for themselves in the studio. And so while the burners couldn't go to Burning Man themselves, they could experience that same world in Burning Man with their other friends, like they were there in sort of VR. And a more recent example is with Moschino, where Jeremy Scott did a fashion show using sort of what they're calling his dolls, where none of the major magazine editors were on hand, but he recreated his looks on his vignettes and then released that video into the world so that people can understand what his fashion line was. But then he also then did a behind the scenes of how he did it. And at some level, the behind the scenes to me was almost as interesting as seeing the new line of clothes as well. And so to kind of wrap up, what I believe is that while the old model of attention was all about disrupting people with advertising, the future of attention is all about interactive collaboration and providing value-added services. Thank you very much, and thanks for coming to this talk.
Thank you, Gerard, so much for your presentation. Lots of inspirations. I think that this triangle between content, commerce, and community are going to stay quite long with us. Thank you once again.